Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of our World Cup wrap here on the National Curriculum. Nick Tabano here in studio. Better late than never. Obviously, no AM show due to various ticker reasons among some of our panelists. But today, we've still been able to get a show out. We thought we'd go more the preview route than the review. So we've brought in today Damir Kulas and over from WA, Ben Smith, who's kindly joined us on his way back home from work because, of course, the 3-hour time difference, it's still only 4:53 p.m. over there in WA. But, guys, really exciting time right now. We're less than 12 hours out from the Socceroos opening group game. How are we feeling? The nerves starting to seep in. And also, how have we taken in the action so far?
Probably say intrigued as to how the Socceroos will perform, given that I think quite early on after we qualified, Arnie made the point that back in 2018 when we played France, we played not to lose. So how will we set up tonight, particularly with the absence of Boyle, Hrustic will be starting the game on the bench. So there's a few sort of selection issues that I guess need to be resolved. The mail that we received yesterday from Joey Lynch and others was that Harry Suter will be starting, and the Socceroos might play with a 3-man central defence supported by 2 attacking fullbacks, which you'd think would be Atkinson and Beige. So, given that we've never utilised that formation under Arnie in this second tenure of his, it'll be interesting to see how the team adapts, particularly against such world-class opposition. But also, we haven't played a European team since playing Denmark in Samara in 2018. So 4.5 years between drinks. How will we fare up against not just any European team, the defending world champions?
Ben, how are you feeling ahead of this game?
Well, mate, I'm feeling tired because I started work at 5 a.m. today. I'm on the morning shift throughout the entire tournament, so that's going well. I'm going to be up working at 3 a.m. tomorrow morning as well. I'll be in the office at 3 a.m. watching the Socceroos, filing on that one. So in a way, I'm looking forward to it because it's awesome to be able to be paid to work to watch football. But I'm already tired. I know my ticker levels are going to come into question from various members of the soccer Twitter over the course of the next few weeks. I'm already tired after one night. I'm a bit tired, but I am looking forward to this Socceroos game tomorrow. I'm really intrigued to see whether Arnold does go for a back 3 or whether he sticks with the back 4. I'm kind of talking myself into, the fact that back 3 might work, but I think it just, does he go Frank Karacic or Nathaniel Atkinson to right back? I think that's a really big question. Atkinson's probably better going forward, and if Arnold has decided that the best way to play is to hit France on the break, which I think we're kind of expecting. Atkinson probably gets the nod over Karacic in that role, but I don't think it's clear cut, and I think there's a lot of kind of selection, question marks we have over the squad. I think we're still all wondering how, which exact players are going to be playing. We've heard Aiden Hrustic is probably going to be, resigned to, a bench role if that in the France game. So, I think Graham Arnold will start Riley McGree in place of him. I personally would love to see Cam Devlin start alongside Aaron Moy because I think he's a bit better on the ball than Jackson Irvine, and I think we're going to get pressed quite high by France. I don't think Arnie will do that. I think he will opt for Jackson Irvine alongside Aaron Moy in that kind of double pivot. But yeah, to be honest, I'm just excited to see Australia play in another World Cup game. I don't have high hopes for it, but I don't think we should ever take it for granted the fact that we're playing in a World Cup. It's such an amazing achievement, and just to be able to watch the guys tomorrow morning, win, lose or draw, I just hope I'm proud of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a huge contest, notwithstanding obviously, the opposition, but everything else. It is a World Cup game. It's another World Cup opportunity for the Socceroos. Obviously, we have spoken about personnel. It looks like that, as you guys have mentioned, that the majority of the team is quite locked in, but there are a few positions which are still up for grabs. But obviously, as well, the formation, it does actually look like, having, read the tea leaves over the last couple of days, and also based on the latest reports from David Davutovic, is that they're probably going to go with the back four and go with the 4-3-3. And the only positions really up for grabs right now are right back, who partners Harry Souttar in centre back, whether it's Kai Rolls or Bailey Wright, and who is the third midfielder as well, alongside Jackson Irvine and Aaron Moy. So it looks like it's actually a battle between Rolly McGree and one of Devlin or Keanu Bacchus, with Aiden Hrustic all but confirmed to come off the bench. I think Graham Arnold actually confirmed that in a press conference yesterday, as to how that's going to go. And it looks like the front three, with Mitch Duke, Matthew Leckie, and Arwen Mabil. What do we think of, I guess, the 11 that does get rolled out? How can we see it if it is that 4-3-3 in those last few selection decisions, Damir? Obviously, right back, you did mention Nathaniel Atkinson does give you that little bit more sort of an attacking option. But defensively, as we saw against the UAE, we do lose a little bit when we're playing with him. How do you see? Do you see, if we're going with that 4-3-3, that Fran Karacic does get the start, and as well, who partners Harry Souttar in defence? Do you go with Kai Rolls, or do you go with someone like Bailey Wright, who has potentially played a little bit more football in the lead into this tournament?
I'd probably go with Karacic at right back, just because of the reasons that you've just outlined. If you look at Atkinson this season for Hearts, he has been suspect sometimes defensively, so much so that Hearts have actually played him further forward and have had cover at right back to basically support him down on that right flank. When it comes to the centre of defence, if we are playing two at the back, four at the back and two in the middle, I would be inclined to go for experience. So one of either Bailey Wright or Miloš Degenek alongside Souttar. Probably Wright has the edge there. But yeah, it's interesting. Souttar is coming off the back of a lengthy 12-month layoff with the ACL injury. He's had one full game for Stoke City heading into the World Cup. Rolls hasn't played too much because of his own injury issues over the course of the last 2 months. Wright's only really just established himself as a Sunderland starter of this season, and Degenek hasn't played club football in over a month. So it's not an ideal situation. And my question really is, and this probably dwells into the pessimism that I have with regards to this team up against this opponent, and it might be a simplistic way of looking at things, but does it really matter who starts? Because I don't give us much hope. And is it going to be a case of, let's give it our best go, maybe even, employ a strategy of damage limitation, something that I guess goes contrary to what Arnie said, and put all eggs in the basket against Tunisia, so we're alive come the final group stage game against Denmark. Because, you look at last night's game between England and Iran, I don't think the Socceroos will be that open and will be that disjointed in defence and in midfield. But the big worry with this tournament being held in season with so many players at the peak of their powers is whether this French team is going to gel quite quickly, irrespective of some of the other issues that they've been having, whether it's through injury, perhaps disunity within the camp and so on. That's the big question mark for me. And how would the Socceroos potentially overcome any setbacks that occur early on during the proceedings?
Ben, do you transcribe to the same thought? Is it just about damage limitation tonight, or are you all in, we go for the game and try and get something from this?
I mean, it's tough, isn't it? Because, I loved the 2014 World Cup and we basically said we are not going to be cowed by anyone. And, even though we lost 3 games of that World Cup, you came out of that tournament with a sense of pride, the fact that we had tried to take the game on. And the fact that, Ange got the most out of the playing group, definitely wasn't the most talented of Australian teams to ever go to a World Cup, but he got the utmost out of that tournament in Brazil. And we were all, honestly, I think I'm more proud of that Socceroos performance, that tournament, where they were actively trying to win games than, the one in South Africa where we won 10, in 2010, where, yes, we beat Serbia, but for the most part, I didn't think we played that well at that tournament. So it's tough. I just want, a performance we can be proud of. I think if we fight hard, we don't give up too many looks at goal. I think if we, start, frustrate with French, take, pick our moments to go forward, I think I'll be happy with that.
Look, in my opinion, guys, I think that I transcribe to sort of both sides. I mean, the best chance is we get a point from this game and just try and get something out of it. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, France's absentees, but I just don't think that as much as it might change some things with guys like Pogba, Kante, Benzema missing, I don't think it changes too much in terms of, overall our chances of getting a result, to be brutally honest. Because, look, Benzema being out isn't going to necessarily transcribe to Australia being more conducive when they actually have the ball at their feet and they're looking to make something happen. And I think still there's enough firepower to really, really just take a game over. When you look at Mbappe, when you look at Griezmann, when you look at even someone like Olivier Giroud, Aussie Dembele, it's a very frightening front four. Still one of the best in terms of individual talent in the entire World Cup. And then, of course, you're looking at their midfield when they've still got guys like, Chumani and also with Camavinga. It's still very talented, even defensively as well. So all around the park, there are quality players. So I think it is that damage limitation side of it. But from the same token, you do want to see Australia go for it because, as you mentioned, Ben, that 2014 World Cup was so exhilarating. Even though they might have left themselves open a bit defensively, they took it right to the Dutch, they took it right to Chile, and they almost got something from those games. Then again, though, it's apples and oranges in that situation. Very different teams as well in terms of personnel. So it is going to be an interesting one, in terms of, lineup, in terms of how they really go for this game. If we're going to see something very similar in terms of game state in comparison to 2018, because in 2018, Damir, remind me, I think that it was 0-0 for at least an hour before Josh Risdon gave away the penalty. And then from that stage on, really the game started to open up a little bit.
Yes, from memory. It might not have been exactly an hour, but it was quite close to it.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar kind of game. If the Socceroos just look to go ground and pound, tight defensively, you're bringing someone in like Matt Leckie to provide that extra sort of, support for the fullbacks. We know he's got the engine. They're going to try to play long balls to Mitch Duke. And the best chance that Australia has of scoring is probably going to come from a set piece. So it is going to be, I think, just fascinating to see what lineup they go with. And then if the game's on the line, whether Arnie looks to go for it, because there are players that won't start this game that could come on and really cause an impact, whether it's half an hour of Aiden Hrustic, whether it's 20 minutes of Garang Kuol or Jason Cummings, there are guys on that bench that can potentially have a bit of an impact. But guys, obviously we need to keep the ball rolling with all the other games that's coming up. And obviously looking back at last night, let's put our necks on the line. How do we see this game going? Score predictions. Damir, I'll start with you.
3-0 France.
Ben? I think we might have actually lost Ben for the time being. We'll try and get him back in just a second. But, so my prediction here, I'm going to go 3-0 as well to the French. I think they're just going to be a little bit too strong. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 3-0 where they kind of run away with it late. I think it might be a tight game for most of it until later on in the contest. But to me, let's look ahead to the rest of tonight's games. Obviously, night 3 kicks off in just under an hour now. So obviously, we want to try and wrap this up and get ready to go for that first game. Argentina versus Saudi Arabia. The last dance for Lionel Messi kicks off tonight. How do you see this game going? Obviously Argentina being a hot favorite going into this tournament. What's your outlook for the Argentinians going into this one?
I think it should be quite a comfortable win for Argentina. They come into this World Cup as arguably the most informed team from the heavy hitters or big teams that are expected to challenge and potentially win the tournament. The fact that it is Messi's last dance, and not just him, but also Di Maria's had a wonderful international career. Martinez has come into good form for them over the course of the last couple of years. It's great to see that Dybala has also overcome his injury niggles and is part of this squad. Hey, Papu Gomez, he's 34, but it's great to see him at his first World Cup. And overall, I'd say that this team is more balanced than the 2018 team. It's a better team as well. You look at defense, they do have not only Otamendi and Romero, who are the expected starters, but Lisandro Martinez has been exceptional for United after a bit of a difficult start. And even in the fullback positions, it's much more balanced than it was back in 2018. I guess the big blow for them was losing Lo Celso because he was an important member of that midfield alongside Paredes and De Paul. But I expect Argentina to be quite strong. They should top this group quite comfortably. And then, as always, they should be the best supported team in the tournament, because you could literally have a World Cup in Antarctica and you can bet that thousands of passionate Argentines would journey there and be the most vocal fan base around. I think you're on mute, Nick.
Come on, mute. Ben, looks like we've got you back now.
I'm
Argentina going into this one. We'll come back for your Socceroos prediction at the end of the show. But how do you see, I guess, them coming into this tournament? Do you also transcribe to them being a team that, could actually go all the way and win the tournament?
First of all, apologies for the technical difficulties. The guy next to me had a microwave in his car. I'm not sure if that had any issues, any impact, but yeah, I really like the look of this Argentinian team. I said before the tournament, I think the winner is going to come from that Brazil versus Argentina semi-final, which everyone is kind of predicting. I think they've got the balance right. I think Messi started the season quite well for PSG. It feels like there's kind of almost less pressure on him, like in terms of his role within the team. I think individually, there's still a lot of pressure on him. I kind of wrote a bit on Messi and the World Cup today for work. There's a cheap plug. And I think I've said the World Cup is kind of Messi's Everest, because he's always going to be compared to Maradona back home. He's going to be forever compared to Diego. So, to square the ledger of World Cups, he needs this. This is going to be his last shot at winning a World Cup. I think this is, one of the best Argentinian teams he's played in. Just, looking at their squad, watching them play a bit at the Copa America last year, I was quite impressed. I think they can definitely go all the way. I've actually tipped Brazil to win the tournament, but like I said, I do think the winner is going to come from that Brazil-Argentina semi-final. I'm not really too sure. I think Saudi Arabia will be better than Iran and Qatar, who were both just very poor. I think, I think they're going to hopefully be one of the better Asian countries over this World Cup. Maybe not on the same level as Japan and South Korea, but I do think that Saudi Arabia will be solid, if unspectacular.
Well, I believe, according to Josh Parrish, who's in our comments, that the starting lineups are in fact in for the Argentina-Saudi Arabia game. I'm going to try and pull them up in just a second. But in the meantime, Damir, we saw Saudi Arabia in World Cup qualification quite closely, being in the Socceroos group. Obviously, the draw in Sydney, then they beat Australia in what was effectively a dead rubber in that game in Riyadh. What are your thoughts on them? Could this team be, better, as Ben alluded to, than what we've seen so far from the Asian sides? Do you give them much hope under Hervé Renard? What have you made from what you've seen of Saudi Arabia so far?
They've definitely been an improved team compared to the one that we saw in 2018, through qualifying at least. I know recent friendly results haven't exactly been the best, but Renard is a competent international manager. He got the best out of the team during the qualification phase. And the thing that I'd note is that it's an extremely tricky game to begin with. But, the same hope that we have of Australia potentially catching France by surprise, and particularly early on in the tournament where, players are maybe not exerting themselves full throttle, maybe, Saudi Arabia can do similar. And, they will be well supported. It's just a short journey from Saudi Arabia to Qatar. The conditions will be favorable to them. But overall, it's quite a daunting proposition when, in front of you, you've got the likes of Messi, Di Maria, Martinez, and then even you're looking at the bench, another player that I didn't mention, Julian Alvarez from Manchester City. It's a really star-studded Argentina team, and you'd expect them to win quite comfortably. But let's see if the Saudis offer more resistance compared to the Iranians and Qataris who, fell behind quite early, and it was always a tall order from there onwards.
We're just reading out the starting lineups for those who have missed it at home and haven't had a chance to go have a look. For Argentina, Emiliano Martinez in goals, the back four of Tagliafico, Otamendi, Christian Romero, and Molina. In midfield, Paredes, Rodrigo de Paul, and Papu Gomez at a front three of Messi, Lautaro Martinez, and Angel Di Maria. Stars all over the place for them. And then, of course, for Saudi Arabia, always in goals, the back four of Sharani, Al Balawi, Al Tambakati, Abdul Lamid. I think I'm doing all right with my pronunciation, guys. Kano, Malki, and Al Faraj in midfield, and then a front three of Al Barakin, Al Shahiri, and Al Dossari. So, guys, let's get some predictions. Argentina all around the room, or we tipping potentially the first upset of the tournament?
4-0 Argentina.
Ben?
I think you're on
Ben's
mute.
Sorry, 3-0 Argentina.
Well, I'm going to go with a 2-0 win. I think it's actually going to be a little bit tighter than you guys, giving Saudi Arabia a bit of extra benefit of the doubt. Let's move on to the other Group D game, Denmark versus Tunisia. Obviously, keen eyes on this one, given obviously the stakes in that game and how it will shape up the rest of Group D. Denmark going also hot favourites to win this one. Really, really solid in their Euro 2020 campaign, after what happened with Christian Eriksen, that opening game against Finland. They rallied around each other, made it to the semis, almost got through to the final, obviously fell to England and Tunisia by the other token. We saw them in 2018. They went out in the group stage, but a chance for them. And, Fahid Ben Khalfallah, who spoke to Keep Up, was quite optimistic about their chances. He rates their squad. Guys, what are your thoughts on this one? Can you see Tunisia potentially jagging a result, or is it all one way with Denmark?
I'd probably say with this one, it'll be a lot closer than the two other games we previewed. I think Tunisia will give a good account of themselves. Denmark are a lot of people's dark horse favourites. I think they've got it to the stage where previously they may have been underrated. Now they're probably at a point where they're overrated. But having said that, it'll be great to see Christian Eriksen make his big tournament return following what happened to the Euros. I think he's had quite a good season for United relative to expectations coming in. And he's still an important player for Denmark, who is hoping to score at his second consecutive World Cup. As a team, a few other young players have emerged. I really like Skov Olsen, who's had a good European campaign for Club Brugge as well. But I'm expecting this one to be a close one and Denmark to edge it 2-1.
Ben?
I believe it's going to, I think, just to echo what Damir said, I think everyone is kind of choosing Denmark as a dark horse to the point where they're not. I kind of feel like they're not dark horses because everyone is picking them. They're kind of, I don't think they're in that kind of favourites or contenders group, but I think they are someone, to keep an eye on throughout the tournament. I thought against England in the Euro semi-final last year, that first half an hour, they kicked England's ass. They were fantastic in that opening half an hour. And then when they went 1-0 ahead, they kind of just switched off. It was like they ran out of energy, like someone took out their batteries or something. It was not, they just faded from that game so quickly. So, yeah, I don't know what happened to them in that game, but they've got good form since then. I would expect them to be, comfortable winners over Tunisia without, necessarily making it show on the score line, on the score sheet. I think I've tipped a 2-0 win in my tipping document. So I'm going to go with that. I'm looking forward to seeing Denmark play. I think they're a very good chance of actually knocking France off and actually claiming a top spot in the group as well.
See, the big thing with me in Denmark is they're very hard to break down. I mean, they've got such a good back three when you've got the likes of Simon Kjær, Andreas Christensen, Joachim Andersen, Kasper Schmeichel in goals. They play two real destroyers in the middle of the park with Højbjerg and Delaney. So, they're very compact. They're going to be hard to break down, especially through the spine. And in those wide areas, when you got a player like Joachim Mæhle, who I rate very, very highly, very good player for Atalanta, someone to certainly keep an eye on when he's getting forward. But my only concern is about Denmark, as much as they got guys like Eriksen and Skov Olsen and, Mikkel Damsgaard as well, who had a brilliant Euros, scored that goal against England, is who's going to score the goals for Denmark? I mean, they got a lot of striking options with Braithwaite, Dolberg, Poulsen and Cornelius, but no one's ever really grabbed the mantle as that new number 9 since Jean Dahl Thomason's retired. So it is curious to see who's going to be that next guy. It was supposed to be Kasper Dolberg a few years ago when he burst onto the scene as a youngster. Before that, it was even Andreas Cornelius. And we've seen Martin Braithwaite as well, obviously made that infamous move to Barcelona. Yusuf Poulsen shown bits, here and there, but probably better suited out wide. So I think if there's any concern about Denmark, it's just going to be, my opinion, how they're going to score the goals. So they got the guys who can get it to them, but it's just that really clinical number 9 to me.
Look at the Nicholas Bentner disrespect there, as if he wasn't Denmark's main linchpin at Euro 2012. But no, I think that's a very valid point. Kasper Dolberg didn't make much of an impact at the last World Cup, but he certainly did well at the Euros, and my money would be on him to be Denmark's potent force up top. But they're a team that will probably get goals all around the park, or can get goals all around the park, whether it's Eriksen, whether it's Damsgaard, even the centre backs in Kjær and Christensen. Joachim Mæhle, you mentioned, is a very attacking fullback that if he's not scoring goals, he's assisting them. So I think that they're one of these teams that can go far throughout the course of the tournament and can have their goals spread out across a number of different players.
No, absolutely. And I think it's going to be an interesting case study to see who does get that number 9 jersey for the first game. I think, to see who really gets the first crack, because they do have a lot of strikers that they're bringing along. I think it's really 4 out and out number 9s, and also Jonas Vind as well, who can also play as a striker, probably better suited even to play off the shoulder, but someone as well to keep an eye on since he's made that move to Wolfsburg. I'm predicting this game a 2-0 win for Denmark. I think they're going to be just too strong all around the park. Tunisia, though, a few players I am curious to keep an eye on. Hannibal Mejri, obviously Damir, you as a Manchester United fan, him being out on loan at Birmingham this year. By all reports, he's been pretty good. And as well, Wahib Khazri is the one he's only 31. I thought he was a lot older because it feels like he's been around forever, but you expect him to lead the line for Tunisia at this tournament. But I just don't see them having enough quality to get something from this game. Moving on to the final of we've obviously done the Australia-France game as well, but the other of the 4 games, the 3 a.m. kickoff for those on the Australian Eastern Seaboard, Mexico versus Poland. Now, this is an intriguing game because, to me, we were talking off air about this game could really shape up as well. Who is that second team behind Argentina? We saw Mexico in 2018. They started the group like a house on fire, and then the bottom fell from underneath them. And we know about the curse. 7 straight round of 16 appearances, 7 straight exits. But by the same token, Poland have almost found it impossible to get out of the group. There's a lot on the line for this opening game.
Yeah, very much so. And it's probably going to be another one of those cases where Guillermo Ochoa v. Robert Lewandowski, 2 contrasting World Cup storylines. Ochoa has definitely been one of Mexico's star players. across the last two World Cup tournaments, whereas Lewandowski didn't make much of an impact in 2018, where Poland were quite disappointing in Group H. And if you look at their last three World Cup tournaments, which are the three tournaments post the fall of communism and Poland becoming a democracy, they've always qualified well for World Cup tournaments, as they did this time round as well. But when it comes to the actual tournament, they failed to live up to expectations. They lose their opening two games, win the third and final game, which is the dead rubber, but are disappointing on their way to a group stage exit. So can they buck that trend this time round? Mexico, as you mentioned, can they get themselves into a position where they advance, not just past this group, but also into the quarterfinals, which, if memory serves me correctly, they haven't done so since hosting the tournament in 1986. And beyond that, I don't believe they've ever done that beforehand. I could be wrong,
No,
but
they haven't. It was when they hosted the other. They've only done it in the two World Cups they hosted,
okay,
Damir. So it's
yeah,
a good omen for 2026.
exactly. And look, with Mexico, they've always had the talent, but they just haven't been able to deliver when playing top class opposition. That looked to change last time round when they beat Germany. But then, as we saw at the end of the group stage, that wasn't the vintage Germany, and they fell quite easily to Brazil in the round of 16 without much resistance. Going forward, a lot will be expected of Lozano, who, after a tricky start to life in Napoli, has done well and has become one of the key parts of a really scintillating Napoli attack. So he's again going to be their main man going forward. In midfield, you're going to have the veterans in Cuadrado, who is going to his fifth World Cup. I believe it's him, Ronaldo, and Messi who are playing in their fifth consecutive World Cups, as well as Hector Herrera, who has swapped Atletico Madrid for Houston Dynamo this year. So he's probably not going to be peak Hector Herrera, but he definitely provides a lot of heart and drive in the center of the park. With this game, I'm going for a narrow Mexico win, 1-0.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because it is probably two of the great teasers of world football. I mean, every tournament I feel like Poland has been in ever since Lewandowski's really burst onto the scene. You always get this sense that, Poland are going to do something special, but for one reason or another, they just haven't been able to, put it together. It feels like as well, a lot of this team to me is a lot of the players that are still being hung on to, players like Gregor Kukoviak, Kamil Glick as well going to this tournament. He's now playing in Serie B for Benevento. Kukoviak playing in Saudi Arabia. Grzycki back home now in Poland. And it's a lot of this as well is also on not just Lewandowski, but the next lot of players coming through. I mean, Arkadiusz Milik, I think, has actually been pretty good for Juventus since going across, but playing him and Lewandowski together has never really meshed because a lot of their best strikers are very similar. Even with Krzysztof Piątek as well, who is going to this tournament now at Salernitana after that amazing start to his career at Genoa and Milan, has sort of fallen by the wayside. But as well, it comes down to guys like Piotr Zielinski. You speak about players at Napoli, Damir. He's someone who goals and assists merchant, but he's someone who could be that late run guy. He's good when the ball's at his feet. Nikola Zalewski as well, who's been playing a lot for Roma. They've got some talent, but it's about putting it together on the park against the Mexico side that you mentioned. They've played together. A lot of these guys have played together for years. Ochoa, Guardado, Herrera, the list really goes on and on. But my only concern, similar to Denmark, is who's going to score the goals now. Raul Jimenez hasn't been the same player since, the unfortunate injury he had. They're not taking Chicharito this time around or Carlos Vela. Despite them being in the MLS, you'd think that they'd be players to potentially take on over. So it does fall a lot on Chucky Lozano, who last tournament was unbelievable. At Napoli, even now, he's been good, but he's always found a bit of an uphill battle to solidify his spot alongside guys like Politano and Raspadori, Insigne before that, Dries Mertens, Callejon. But now he's sort of been able to get that clean run. He's stuck it through it. I think he's been pretty good for them. So it's going to be an intriguing contest because I think the winner, in my view at least, is looking quite good to get to finish second in this group. So I'm going to go a Mexico winning this one as well. But by all words, the one player to keep an eye on has actually been given the number 10 jersey is Alexis Vega. Heard some big raps of him. Obviously, young 24-year-old who's playing for Guadalajara in the Mexican Liga MX. So someone to certainly keep an eye on tonight. So obviously, we lost Ben for just a second. But Damir, before we go to our special guest who's joining us from Doha.
Just two other interesting storylines or narratives from this game in relation to two naturalized players who may make an impact for both teams. For Poland, we know a lot about Matty Cash from Aston Villa, who has only debuted for the national team in the last 12 months. I believe he's got a Polish grandparent, and that was how he gained his Polish passport. But also for Mexico, Rogelio Funes Mori, a prolific striker in Liga MX. He's actually the twin brother of Ramon Funes Mori, the former Everton centre-back, both born in Argentina, but Rogelio has been naturalised and has had a pretty good goal-scoring record so far for Mexico with 6 goals in 16 games.
Yeah, well, to be honest, when I saw his name, Damir, I actually thought it was the same. I just saw RFR and I thought it is Ramon, but obviously Rogelio, very different players. So yeah, certainly one to keep an eye on. His goal scoring record for Monterrey is unbelievable, actually. I think it's something like he's in triple figures throughout his time there. But we'll get back to Ben Smith in just a second. But joining us live from Doha, Joey Lynch on the ground. He's been working hard for the past, how long have you been there now? A week?
A week, yeah. So I flew in at 3 a.m. on the Monday. So what is today? Tuesday? It's a week. I don't know what day it is. It's been a week. Yeah.
We're now, how long are we now? We're about 9.5
10
hours.
From the opening game. 10 hours.
Yeah, kicking off at 10 p.m. your time over in Doha. What's the feeling, Joey? I mean, we're closing in on that first game. 11 boxing kangaroos going out to the field to take on France. What's your feeling from having been out the Aspire Academy, seeing the players firsthand, speaking to them, speaking to Arnie? What's your feelings going into this one?
It feels, the line from Arnie and the players throughout this entire thing, you know, nobody's going to win any awards for guessing the consistent themes that we've heard from all of them. It's about belief, it's about effort, it's about aggression, it's about Aussie DNA. I mean, these are things that we've done to death throughout this entire qualification campaign. And in reflecting on it, I think a few of us journos have been talking about it over here. These lines about aggression and fight and Aussie DNA probably actually suitable for the French, given that the Australians aren't going to go out there and be technically better than the French. That just maybe the reason they grate so much is because we also hear these lines ahead of the likes of the UAE and China and Vietnam and all of that sort of stuff. So it's worn out its welcome at this point. But listen, if I removing all their layers of sentiment and just analysing the game from a completely neutral perspective, France are going to win. I mean, they should. They absolutely should be winning. This is the equivalent. This is the international equivalent of, you know, defending A-League champ Melbourne City going up against who? In the global pecking order, an NPL side, an NPL 2 or an NPL 3 side. In an actual competitive football match. So they should be winning. However, I feel as though, from what I can tell from the mood on social media, maybe a few talking to people around here, some of the fans, it almost feels a little bit like the horseshoe effect, like a bastardization of the horseshoe effect. People have gone so far towards we can't win that they've now sort of flipped around and have now saying that, well, maybe we will act like we can't lose, sort of thing, just like wholly based on narrative, that they've gone so far in one direction, they've emerged on the other side. So it's going to be an interesting day. The Socceroos, well, their preparation has been perfect, or as perfect as you can get in this tournament. They've got the second best facilities probably in this entire World Cup after only the Qataris. You know, to get to the training pitch, they have to walk all of 10 metres past a mural bearing the words of "I come from a land down under," which Jason Cummings apparently belts out every time he walks past that mural. But at the end of the day, Australia are going to give their absolute all, one would hope, but to get a result, they're going to have to be helped out by the French. The French are going to have an off day.
Joey, before we get to your review of the England game, because obviously you were there for the battering, I wanted to ask, because we're speaking about predicted 11s. Ben, that's enough, mate. Just in terms of predicted 11s, we're speaking about how it looks like there's only a few positions now sort of up for grabs, that majority of the 11 is locked in, and it looks like they're going 4-3-3. How do you see the Socceroos lining up against France tonight?
If it's a 4-3-3, it becomes significantly easier to pick. Going back to a 4-3-3, there's always the possibility for a late surprise and going to a back five. It's been toyed about in camp. Arnold perhaps playing a bit of misdirection, wasn't too vociferous in his denials. However, if it's a 4-3-3, it's much easier to predict. Aziz Behich and Matt Ryan will play absolutely 100%. Looking increasingly likely that Harry Souttar will play as well. As the days wore on and the injury concerns mounted, a lot of the focus got shifted onto Martin Boyle and Aiden Hrustic, because Harry Souttar was generally considered to be okay. So Harry Souttar almost certainly will take one. The big conversation is between Bailey Wright and Kai Rowles on the other side. I would lean towards Bailey Wright or even Tommy Deng, but I'm not a coach, so I think Wright is going to get the nod. And then it comes down to what Arnold wants from his right back. Does he want the attacking flair of Nathaniel Atkinson, who we're going to remember, who was a bit exposed in the playoff games against the UAE and Peru, against, let's face it, two sides that are nowhere near as talented as France. So I reckon Karacic might have an in on that front, purely because, as you would know, Nick Gaccio, defensively sounds, a lot of focus on the defensive fundamentals. Midfield, it's easy. Irvine, Moy, and I reckon McGree. If it's a 4-3-3, it's just going to be who do you plug in for Hrustic, who will come off the bench, and McGree he doesn't offer the same skill set as Hrustic, but he offers an attacking mindset, closer to Hrustic than Devlin and Bacchus. And then up front, I reckon it's pretty much locked in. Mabil, Lecky, and Duke will start up front in a 4-3-3, if it is indeed a 4-3-3.
Stick your neck out, Joey. What's the prediction?
France win.
Scoreline?
I can't.
No.
Depends when it depends when the French score first. If Australia can keep them out early, I'm predicting only a 1 or a 2 goal win for the French. If the French score early, we saw what happened to Iran last night. Heads could drop, but so it depends on when the first goal is scored.
Fair shout. Hey, Damir and Ben, this is probably not Damir and Ben. Sorry, Joey and Ben. This is definitely up your alley where we'll go to now. Obviously, Joey, you were in the stadium last night. Ben, I could probably hear you screaming from all the way down here in Melbourne how excited you were with this England result. 6-2, smashed Iran. Is it coming home, fellas? Ben, is it coming home? We'll start with you first.
I still don't know if England are good because Iran were that bad, but it was like everyone's focusing on the fact England scored 6, but it was like, yeah, but Iran were hopeless. They were dreadful. That was one of the worst World Cup performances I've seen in some time, and I was really disappointed because I thought Iran would be a lot better defensively, and it felt like as soon as they went 2-0 up, they felt they had to press high and try and win the ball back and chase the game, and that just made England easy for England to scythe through them. It was a massacre. Although I did find it funny that the first goal came because a certain Harry Maguire played a defence-splitting pass. Who would have thought, hey?
Absolutely. After, like all the talk of 4 games in the lead in, probably shouldn't have been starting, shouldn't have been playing. Joey, you saw the Southgate masterclass. You've made a bit more optimistic than Ben in the flesh. Take us through the day. I mean, not just the result, the whole day, because it was like a real, just there was so much happening before the game with the armband and everything else that was going on. You were in the stadium. Take us through, I guess, everything that happened from where you were on the ground.
Well, it was very eventful before the game. I mean, but I'll talk to the armbands in a second. But I mean, there was a ticketing disaster. Ticket app collapsed. The stadium was a third of the seats were empty 15 minutes before kickoff. And there was also ticketing problems ahead of the US game. So that's a storyline to watch tonight for the
Are you saying,
Australians.
hang on, Joey, hang on. Are you saying the ticket machine had no ticker?
It's a digital app, Ben. But oh God, don't do that. No, but that was a disaster. Also, I caught a fan shuttle in. Decided to jump on a bus, and guess who was on the bus? But friend of the show, Stephen Ganavas, on the bus as well. But the fan shuttle's parked like 3.5, 4 kilometers from the actual stadium that you had to walk through. Luckily, it was only like 29 degrees yesterday, because like if it was a stinker, people would have been collapsing. So that was an interesting thing. But on the armband situation now, FIFA, obviously, maybe I should watch what I say because I'm in a FIFA venue right now, but disgraceful from cowardice from FIFA, outright cowardice, outright capitulation. Like, it's so predictable. But 2 days after Gianni Infantino has, let's face it, has a hissy fit in front of the world's cameras live on stage and engages in some of the world's greatest whataboutism. And they continue. I mean, and the story breaking overnight that Belgium have been asked to remove the decal saying love from inside their shirts. It's not the rainbow design, it just says love. So apparently love is not allowed at FIFA events these days. It's just disgraceful. Also disappointed with, I'm not disappointed with Harry Kane or the players, because throughout this entire thing, players have sort of become the face of a, none of them voted for this tournament to be held in Qatar. They are the faces of it, but none of them make any of the decisions or any of that sort of stuff. But the FA really backing down over this, it's disappointing, especially when you contrast that with the Iranian players for the stand that they took before the game, not singing the national anthem. They're really, especially the Iranian players went out and risked a lot more than just their booking last night. They risked personal safety, the safety of friends and family, and it's disappointing that the FA wouldn't even risk a booking. Like, I mean, we know the honorifics around captaincy and all of that sort of stuff. You could have shared the captaincy around if you were that worried about bookings. You could have had a different captain in game 2, a different captain in game 3. You could have sorted something out. You could have called FIFA's bluff. So I was really disappointed with that. It's just yet another example of this entire tournament being, people like to say, keep politics out of football, and then these very same people keep inserting politics into football. It's just, it's disappointing. And I mean, like, people talk about feeling conflicted at this tournament, like all these stadiums. I'm not conflicted. Stadiums, they're great. Venue location is great. However, I'm not going to come away from this with an elevated opinion on the state of Qatar or FIFA. I'm not conflicted at all. I've already made my mind up on that front. Yeah, your stadiums are great. Doesn't change my opinion on anything else. The people that I've met here, the migrant workers, the people that fly in and do the work, very nice people. There's a bloke at the Socceroos training place, lovely fella. He's a Moroccan, great bloke. Doesn't change my overarching opinion on anything, and that's the way that I'm looking at it. Great stadium, mate. still doesn't wash your sports reputation as a representative of all Australia walks behind me. They're coming for me.
Hey, Joey, I understand obviously you got to head off soonish, but is it coming
Yes.
home? On a lighter note, is it coming home? You were very bullish after the game. We had a couple records after the game, you know.
I mean, yeah, it was a
we're up and
procession.
about.
Like, I'll say that Iran were terrible, so it was a procession. I will say it's coming home after the US game, because the US are going to present a much sterner task than Iran, because Iran were honking. I mean, warning signs for Asia at this point. This tournament could be proving that 4 years of COVID disrupting things, the Nations League having European nations play against each other in more competitive environments. We could be seeing a situation where in South America and Europe are kicking away from the rest of the world. I mean, Argentina probably do the job against Saudi Arabia today. France do the job against Australia today. All eyes on who have the two nations
Japan
that have
and Korea.
come to become the flag bearers of Asia, Japan and Korea, because it's going to be very interesting to see. It's got nothing to do with innate things or anything like that, but the structure of European and South American football. The last Asian Cup was 4 years ago, and then we're just unqualifying. So very interested to see whether the structural advantages that were always innate in South American and European football have been magnified by the past 4 years, and whether Asia and the rest of the world need to do something to catch up.
Damir, your thoughts quickly on this game. Obviously Iran are
Anyway, but
so
guys,
far behind. You're off, Joey?
I'm going to have to say thanks and success. But good to see you
No
guys.
worries.
Good to see you, Ben. And yes, it
Good
is
to
coming
See you,
home.
Joey.
We'll chat after the game tomorrow. Anyways, Damir, quickly your thoughts on this game. Obviously, England in such a good position now to progress. 4 goals clear on goal difference. Iran, conversely, I know they're not technically out of it, given the result between USA and Wales we'll go back to in a sec. But can you see any way back for Iran? I mean, we were used to with Iran being the armored tortoise with Kerosh, but they were completely blown to bits yesterday.
I'm not sure if I have a lot of validity when it comes to talking about Iran, given that I tipped this one to be a goalless draw heading into yesterday's game, and it ended up being the polar opposite. Look, funnily enough, I can still see a way for Iran out of this group. I'd be curious to see who their third choice goalkeeper is, because the second choice goalkeeper last night, who came in following the early injury, I mean, look, he didn't have a much chance with a lot of the goals, but he also didn't appear to be making a lot of effort in trying to save him. But I guess if you're England, it did seem to be a bit too easy. But having said that, Iran still did score 2 goals. Yes, the second penalty is probably not a penalty when, put against the fact that England had a similar incident and potentially a more clear-cut penalty at the start of the game that didn't result in VAR intervention, but that one did. But Iran still broke through the English defence a few times. There was one instance just prior to half-time where they fired over. When Azmoun came on, he seemingly gave Taremi a bit more support. And going into that second game against Wales, you'd probably say Wales is best placed from the other teams to progress now, particularly if the English can do the job in the second game against the US. But, stranger things have happened. And with Iran, it is also quite a difficult context for them to find themselves in when you consider the background of their participation in this tournament, what's happening in Iran. I mean, Kirosh had probably some disappointing comments following the game in relation to many of the Iranian supporters in the stadium, including the booing of the national anthem and whatnot. But yeah, it's one of those groups where, following on from match day 1, you'd probably say it's advantage Wales, and you wouldn't give Iran much hope. But, against Wales is in England. The US, it's a big game for them for many other reasons, and it's probably a bigger game for them than it will be for the Americans, irrespective of what the Americans need from that game to potentially progress forward. But it'll be an interesting next two match days in this group. Even when you take away England, who did look exceptional. And I think that there was a degree of symbolism as well, that 5 of England's first 6 goal scorers happened to be black British players or black English players, as well as the fact that, 3 of them were players who participated in the Euro final.
Yeah, well, look, I think England right now in a great position to get through. I think that as much as Iran weren't great, they had to still get the job done. They put 6 past them. Bukayo Saka for me, great performance, 2 great goals as well, and a lovely moment as well with Jack Grealish and his celebration. Sensational little touch after that one as well. Hey guys, just being mindful that the Argentina-Saudi Arabia game starts in about 12 minutes time. Let's race through the last 2 games from last night. Senegal 0, Netherlands 2. Took 2 late goals from Gakpo and Klaassen to get the job done. But Ben, I got to say, I thought Senegal were pretty good. Even without Mane, they looked like good value to potentially get something from that game.
Yeah, they weren't too bad. It was, I kind of came out of it. I was watching a replay this morning, and it was like, they obviously miss Sadio Mane a lot, and it's just a damn shame that he's missing this tournament, because I would have loved to see, Mane in full flight, for this Senegalese team, because I feel like, as good as, Sarr is, and the left winger impressed me at times. I can't remember his name. I think he was number 15. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
From Monaco.
Yes, yeah. He impressed me a couple of times. And yeah, the Netherlands were, they did what they needed to do. It was, it wasn't their best performance. Again, they kind of had moments. I do wonder whether this is going to be a bit of a World Cup of moments, given, the weird timing of it, the fact that you've got players missing, the fact it's hot, that it's, even though it's being played in December, it's messing with everyone's brains, I think, at the moment. I'm still not used to international football at this time of the year. It's wrinkling my brain. And the Dutch kind of came up in big moments, which I kind of feel might be a bit of a recurring pattern for some of the teams throughout the tournament. But yeah, on the whole, I wasn't too impressed with the Dutch team, to be honest. I think, yeah, they got out of jail a bit. Against better teams, they won't be able to do that. I thought, they're a bit. I thought, Frankie de Jong had some moments where he did some really nice stuff, and other moments where he did some stuff where I was going, why are you trying to play out from the back when you have like people, the man you're playing to on the edge of a penalty area has a man on him. It was. Yeah, I drew the Dutch in my work sweep, so I was actually pretty excited to get them. And after that, I'm kind of thinking I'm a bit less confident.
Damir, so your thoughts, I guess, on the rest of this game, and obviously, the Dutch, they're probably in a good position to win the group, but I guess your thoughts on them going forward from here and the performance this morning.
I think Senegal were good value for a draw. I expected the Dutch to be a bit better, but keep in mind that Memphis Depay didn't start, and they began the game with Vincent Janssen up front, who Spurs fans don't have great memories of. But overall, I found the post-game comments from Matthijs de Ligt quite interesting. He was mentioning how he's not used to playing on the right side of central defence, coming up against wingers. He did seem to struggle, picked up a yellow card. I think Senegal missed Mane, but I thought Diatta, Dia, and Sarr are good value. And if they can come to life against Qatar, they can set themselves up well for that final group game against Ecuador, which promises to be a winner-takes-all clash. But yeah, I just think in the grand scheme of things, it's really a case of Edouard Mendy's club form surfacing at an international level, and it was his 2 mistakes. Even with the second goal, he should have really done better. Definitely the first time round, but also could have maybe got his hand on Klaassen's follow-up attempt. Overall, if you're Holland, it's a pretty clear path for them if they can top this group to the quarterfinals. And then from there onwards, it might be a bit trickier with Argentina expected or projected to be the team that they play. And it's not like they've got a player like Dennis Bergkamp this time around to call upon. And I do wonder whether the fact that in attack, outside of Depay and Gakpo, you can't really trust any of the others to perform against any opposition or quality opposition.
Well, I mean, the attackers, it's sort of made up of, you mentioned Memphis Depay and Gakpo, who I think is an immense talent and someone who I think in this January transfer window upcoming is going to be a hot target from a lot of Europe's bigger clubs. But obviously, other than that, you got journeymen like Luke de Jong and Wout Weghorst, and you got younger guys like Noah Lang and Xavi Simons, who we didn't actually see, along with Noah Lang, who I think have bright futures. But obviously, right now, the opportunities might not come considering who's ahead of them. It seems like Janssen and Bergwijn are ahead of them in the pecking order at the moment. But you do mention that to me with Edouard Mendy. Very, very uncharacteristic mistakes from last season when you look at it. But this season, he's just been off. I mean, he's lost his spot to Kepa at Chelsea. And maybe it's a lack of confidence right now as well. The form's carried over. It's not great signs because if he plays well, it certainly helps Senegal immensely. But I guess we'll wait and see what happens in that second group game. Guys, one last one before we go. USA versus Wales. 1-1, late goal from Gareth Bale from the spot, helping him get over the line. Timothy Weah with the opener had USA in a good position. Damir, quick thoughts on this game?
It's really a tale of two tackles. Firstly, Walker Zimmerman, what are you doing? You're not going to get the ball without cleaning up Gareth Bale. Costly mistake for the US there. And then Kellen Acosta doing really well to pick up the yellow card and foul Bale when he was looking to shoot from the centre circle and ultimately, or potentially, chip Matt Turner for a Welsh winner. I thought Wales were comprehensively the better team in the second half. The introduction of Kiefer Moore really helped. Weston McKennie didn't have a great game for the USA. Conversely, I thought Tyler Adams was good value for them. And, there's a lot of question marks with Greg Berhalter. I think a lot of the American fans were quite disappointed that Gio Reyna didn't come on and that he elected to utilize Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders instead. Given that they play England second and not third, you'd probably say it's advantage Wales. I thought, Kiefer Moore was great value in the second half when he replaced Daniel James and changed the complexion of the game for the Welsh, who were worthy of a draw, if not maybe even a bit more. But also great to see, Timothy Weah, Dad George, 1995 World Player of the Year, Ballon d'Or winner. Didn't play in the World Cup himself because he played for Minos Liberia, but his son, at the first opportunity, becomes the first player born in the 2000s to score at the World Cup, and he took it well. I thought Pulisic did well in the first half, but was quiet in the second half, as were most of his American teammates.
Ben, quickly, your thoughts on this game?
Did not watch it, but I did enjoy the Gareth Bale being tackled by someone that looked just like him for the penalty. It was very humorous seeing Walker Zimmerman paying homage to Gareth Bale with his hair and then bringing him down for the penalty. And is there a more American first name than Walker?
Chad Conrad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like I said, only kind of silver highlights. I thought Kiefer Moore kind of missed a golden chance with a header, which he should have buried. And by the sounds of it, Bale didn't really do much, but he steps up for Wales time and time again. And it was just great to see Wales back at the World Cup after, I think this is their first World Cup since 1958. So just awesome to see the Welsh fans in the crowd and the sea of red.
Absolutely. And Bale going from LAFC's greatest hero a few weeks ago to probably one of the villains really of Los Angeles football and all of American football in stealing.
They tweeted when he scored. His club was celebrating.
Yeah, that was interesting. But I mean, probably for the fans, they're probably like, there's this conflict, this dual conflict. It's like how I feel tomorrow when there's Olivier Giroud and Teo Hernandez playing against bloody the Socceroos. There's this dual sense. But just
And keep in mind as well that Acosta, it was his clubmate who fouled him late on there. So they're definitely quite familiar with one another. But in response to yourself, Ben, is there a more American name than Walker? There's quite a number of names in that US squad. I mean, you look at Ethan Horvath. Ethan's quite an American name, I feel. Also Tyler as well. It's definitely a pick of the bunch, and Weston McKennie as well.
We've got Shaq Moore as well. Homage to great Shaquille. But yeah, I thought this game, as you mentioned, game of two halves. Real big fan of Kiefer Moore's cameo. I think he earns himself a start for that next game. And other than that, I mean, the best highlight for me was the American fans chanting "Refs, you suck" when there was a yellow card in the first half. It was like
fight and win. Fight
hilarious.
And win. I had a Seattle Sounders play. They should have brought out the fight and win. That's all I'm saying.
We need more of it. We need more. But it was in the end of the day, second half was quite entertaining. It was good to see Wales get something from the game. And at the end of the day, it shapes up for a massive match day 2 when the US play England and Wales up against Iran. But guys, time for us to wrap up. It all kicks off in about 2 minutes time, Argentina, Saudi Arabia. But guys, appreciate you jumping on. Ben, before we go, prediction, Socceroos, France, go.
2-0 France.
There we go. All right. Well, guys, set your alarms. It all comes down to this match day 1. We'll be back tomorrow morning, so there'll be a very quick turnaround for the next TNC episode, full review of Socceroos, France, and the rest of the action from overnight. So if you miss any of it, come on the show, get involved. Looking forward to having the whole crew back again. Ben, Damir, thank you very much. And for those at home, thanks and success, and go Socceroos.
Cheers, boys.